So for online coaches, seems like a sort of natural progression from personal training for a lot of people. Obviously, the dream for a lot of people is to get that added flexibility, increased income potential, and possibility of sort of moving overseas and working remotely. So we're running a series of interviews with a bunch of different online coaches that we know that are very successful in their fields, got different backgrounds and have applied their backgrounds in different ways to their online coaching. So today we're with Merrick, who has a background in sports performance coaching, works with a company that he'll tell you more about, and we're going to go through a bunch of questions. So welcome, Merrick. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So to get started, just tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, as you said, I'm an online trainer, S&C coach. My route to doing that online has probably, as you said, been a bit different to other people's. I didn't go down the conventional kind of level 3 PT route, I did work in a gym for a period of time, but it was fairly limited. I went down a different route. I was very lucky. I managed to work in professional sport for quite a while. And then probably in the last 2-3 years of doing that, I started doing a bit of online coaching to supplement that income, and just add a bit of flexibility. And then it just got to the point where I was lucky enough where I was able to finish my work with professional sport, not purely because I wanted to go into online coaching, because I think professional sport has massive benefits as well, but the online space got to the point where I could afford to, from a financial perspective, and live my life with a bit more flexibility and run my own working hours and everything else. So
Within the coach's dream.
Exactly.
Nice. And what was the professional sport you were working in?
So I worked in professional rugby. So I worked for Harlequins Rugby Club for best part of 10 years, working across the academy and then the women's and then the men's program.
Oh, cool. So very sort of sport specific, not...
Very sport specific, very contact sport specific. I worked during that time and kind of early on in the years I was there, before the role became full time. I was, as many coaches are, working kind of 2-3 different roles with schools and gyms and stuff, where I was always working within a sporting environment. I didn't really ever work with general population, but it wasn't all contact sport. It was, contact sport is netball, football, hockey, whatever sport was being played at the school. And then I worked with kind of golfers and triathletes and stuff privately. But it was always, the majority was always contact sport and rugby. Did
you work sort of at the time doing any sort of one-to-one coaching, or was it working with the team, or...?
Both. So when you're working in sport, there's different scenarios. So you do a lot of one-to-one work, primarily in the rehab space, which means that you spend a lot of time in very close, what would the word be? I don't know, like close space with players that are injured. And that's quite a challenging scenario to be in, because obviously no one wants to be a rehabber. They want to be training, they want to be playing. So taking them through what is quite a physio and S&C heavy program, rather than being out playing the sport that they're there to play, has its own challenges. But then obviously you still have the main squad to deal with as well. So we had the full program running, where you'd have 40 to 60 players in the gym 2, 3, 4 times a week. So you'd have to, and doing field stuff as well, I guess.
And you'd be programming the workouts that the whole team are doing and taking them through them? Or?
Well, it depends what role I was in. So we were lucky with the academy and with the senior men's side that we had 3 or 4 different S&C coaches looking after that team. So we'd each have a group of players, or a certain positional group or whatever, that we'd look after. With the women's setup, I was the only full-time S&C coach. So I did that for 4 years almost. And that was a squad of, I think we had up to 60 players in the squad at one point, and I would do the programming for all of them. So that was good fun, but it was a different challenge as well.
So that, as a job on its own, aside from the online coaching, is probably what a lot of fitness professionals aspire to, the sort of thing a lot of people aspire to do, is working in professional sports.
Yeah, 100%. It was a cool place to be. It has, as I said, it has its own amazing benefits and opportunities, and probably what I guess gave me the confidence to start doing online work was having that experience and expertise doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, in our courses, we try and put quite a heavy focus on learning your craft face-to-face, doing either traditional sort of gym-based personal training, or going down the sort of route you have, where you're working face-to-face with clients, learning those interpersonal skills. I think the actual art of coaching is improved massively by doing that as well. Before then going online and sort of going down that route. Do you feel then that what you've learned from that face-to-face element over the years has massively benefited your online?
100%. And I've probably glossed over a couple of years like that are important as well, where before I didn't just, leave university, get qualified and go straight into professional sport. That would have been an unbelievable pathway if I had. But I did do a couple of years of, working at gyms, taking classes, working privately with clients. I just probably didn't do it for as long as a lot of coaches do, because as I said, I got lucky. But yeah, 100%. I think for me, I'm probably, you hear this cliche about whether you're kind of on the art or the science side of coaching. And I'd say I'm probably more on the art side as a coach. And I think that side of it, you struggle to learn if you don't do the in-person work. Because it's even down to simple things like when I first started doing online coaching, it was just before COVID kicked in. And the one thing I noticed straight away, switching over to things like Zoom sessions and everything that everyone did, was I found it really hard to read the mood of the client or kind of what their day had been like when they stepped in the gym. Whereas I think having done 7-8 years of in-person coaching prior to that point, you get a feel of where someone's at, what mood they're in almost as soon as they walk in. And then you know how to judge your cueing or how hard you push them or in what way you push them and how you speak to them and everything else. Whereas I think online, you don't get those cues, the kind of emotional or social cues, or whatever you want to call them. And that can massively affect the session. If you say the wrong thing to a client, you can lose them straight away or vice versa. Yeah. So I think without having that foundation of in-person coaching, the interpersonal skills are just really hard to develop.
Also, I guess the service that you're offering is a completely different one as well. Yeah. Face-to-face coaching is all about that 1 hour face-to-face that you spend with them. Focusing on movement quality, on progressing the movements week to week. Whereas with online coaching, 9 times out of 10, the main thing you're doing is writing a program that they do without you there in any way. Yeah. So yeah, I guess the actual job itself becomes very different too.
Yeah, completely different. Like you said, I would say in online coaching, and it maybe sounds a bit backward, there's probably less coaching in online coaching. There is a lot more programming. The coaching side of it is because you're so reliant on whether the client actually sends you feedback or videos for you to critique or anything else. If they don't, it's very hard for you to get into the actual nitty-gritty of the technical elements. Whereas if you're coaching in person, it's right in front of you. You can see what they're doing wrong. You can cue it. You can change it. You can make improvements there and then. And I guess that's the other thing kind of leading on from that is that something I found almost a bit of a grapple with when I first started was everything in online coaching ends up being retrospective because you're not there in the moment. They'll send you a video of it, which is fine, but they've probably already done 4 sets of 8 of it. And if their technique's been wrong the whole time, they've done it. So yeah, they can't make that change till next time. So I don't know whether I wouldn't be able to tell you whether there's any massive difference in that in terms of the actual kind of performance improvements they make over time. But if you're delaying everything by 1 or 2 sessions, then I'd imagine there probably is.
Even if you've got a really good coach that's watching your videos and guiding you through how to improve next time, it's just not the same as sort of live in-person sort of hands-on coaching, is it?
No, it's not. And you can't, or it's much harder to, you say you're a visual learner. Yeah. It's much harder if you're a visual learner to be coached online. So as a coach, you then have to find different ways to get that point across, whether it is videoing yourself or taking a still of their movement and, drawing on it using whatever software or anything like that. But it's not the easiest way to do it. So like you said, in person, you just have that added advantage of being able to, if they're not understanding what you're saying, you can show them. And that might be a way that they understand. And yeah, it's just a different dynamic for sure.
So something we focus quite heavily on when we're guiding people on whether to go into online coaching or whether to add a sort of hybrid element to their offering is the fact that as soon as you go from in-person coaching where to pick up your clients, you're talking to people in a gym, you've got a captive audience of people there in front of you. It's not easy to pick up clients, but it's a very different approach to online. Once you go online, we tend to tell people that the majority of your work then, rather than coaching, is about marketing. It's about how to pick up clients and retain them as well, because you haven't got that face-to-face element, there isn't the rapport there. Yeah. So retaining them becomes harder as well. So I know your journey as an online coach has been a bit different to some as well, because you work with another company, don't you? Yeah. So maybe not as much of a focus on marketing there.
Well, yeah, but it's then something that recently I'm now having to kind of learn fast, because like you said, so I've been on a coaching online for probably 2 or 3 years in total. I started with one company which was a bit of general population, but then also kind of boxers and recreational level triathletes and stuff like that. And then I moved into a different company, which is who I still work with now, which is much more geared towards contact and combat sport athletes, so the area that I come from anyway. And I was very lucky with them that all of the front end side of stuff, the marketing, the leads, the actual kind of client generation, I guess, was all done for me. All I had to do was, I still had to convert them. So I had to take the sales call. You have to showcase, your personality a bit on that. You have to show them the product and what they can expect from it. And you still have to convert the sale. But as you know yourself, if you manage to get someone on a call in the first place,
there's a high chance.
There's a high chance, unless something goes wrong on the call, there's a high chance they'll convert. So all of that side of it, which is much harder, I was lucky enough that I didn't have to do. But in the last, literally 2-3 months, I've started to try and build my own online coaching business. And that's something that I'm learning fast, is that, the marketing side of it, whether it's through social media or other avenues or whatever it is difficult. And I think I was maybe a bit naive to start with, where I thought, this will be fine. I'll just put stuff out there on social media and clients will come to me. That's how it works in the past. So why wouldn't it be any different? But it's not, because I guess, like you said, and this is, I might speak wrongly here because I don't know too much about it myself, but it's about having them in your kind of ecosystem for a while, whether you get them signed up to an email list and you're sending them weekly, monthly newsletters, whether they're just seeing more stuff on your social media or on your website or whatever it might be, actually takes a while. It's very rare, very, very rare, I'd imagine, that someone goes onto your Instagram page, goes, I like that post, I'm going to sign up.
It's never going to be an instant impulse purchase, is it?
So you've got to find ways to keep them engaged for a while. That's where social media is massive, but there's a lot else, I think, that you need to do to keep them engaged and like you said, show them your personality and what you're about as well, because that's the other aspect that you don't get online as easily as you do in person, being in the gym or anything else.
Also, not to be too sort of scathing about the world of social media, but tends to be that the more sort of controversial you can be with your Instagram posts, the more likes and follows and engagement you get. Whereas if you want to sort of uphold some level of integrity and just post sort of science-based stuff and experience-based stuff that from your background, although it's accurate, research-based and will genuinely help people, it might not be what gets clicks.
Yeah, and that's something we've spoken about, isn't it? In the sense that, it's really easy to chase likes or chase engagement and fall into that like clickbait trap. And this is something I'm still, I'm early in my stages of doing it, so I'm still trying to stick to my guns, if that makes sense. But I think you have to, long term, you're better off sticking to what you believe is true or what you know is true. And if it is correct and if it resonates with people, then things will take off anyway. If you go searching too hard for it, then that's probably going to be a short-term thing, and chances are you'll get found out at some point.
A lot of what the online gurus that train the online coaches, these promises of 10k months from month one are based on exactly that. 9 times out of 10 they're actually not true. No one hits the 10k months, but the ones that do, it's not a sustainable long-term business, because the approaches they're using to get there aren't necessarily, like you say, based on stuff that's to be true or is something that you're going to stick to long-term anyway.
Well, it's like, so the company I work for, separate to my own stuff, is a very well-established company. They've got like 160,000 followers on social media, but I was talking to him about it quite early on, and the guy that runs it, he was doing it for 8 years before it got to the point where he was able to leave his full-time job and just do online coaching. And this was earlier on, so social media maybe wasn't quite as impactful and all that as it is now. And
COVID changed a lot as well, I guess.
COVID changed it. So COVID took his social media presence from, I don't know the exact numbers, but something like 20,000 followers, which is still impressive, to over 100,000 followers. So it is different, and it's different scenarios, but it's that whole cliche, I guess, of like, people say I've worked for 10 years to become an overnight success. Like, it's not going to happen quickly.
So education-wise, what's your sort of background there?
Yeah, so probably different to the conventional route. So I did an undergrad degree in sport and exercise science. And off the back of that, I was lucky enough to get a part-time internship at Harlequins, where in that first year, they put us through some further qualifications with NASM. So kind of the American personal training qualification. And as part of that, we did our certified personal trainer, we did our performance enhancement specialist, and we did our corrective exercise specialist. So they were kind of my first further qualifications outside of a degree. Since then, it's just been continued education through being in the job, first and foremost, and working under people that were far more knowledgeable than I was. I did do some of the UK SCA, so the UK Strength and Conditioning Association workshops. I've never actually done their qualification, but I did the workshops, which is further education. And then just, I think from there, I tried to be proactive around looking for mentors. And I did go on a couple of mentorship programs, which obviously you can pay for and you can get the advice from someone that's been in the industry for a while. But a lot of it is off your own back, reading, listening to podcasts, learning from people, and just conversations with other coaches.
That's it. Over time, the longer you're in the industry, the more you sort of realise the type of people that you resonate with and who are putting out decent advice, and you can learn from them as well as doing proper certified qualifications as well, can't you? That's it's a really good sort of route you've gone down then, education-wise, and I guess it's not that far off the sort of traditional route, given that you've done the level 3 with NASM.
True, yeah.
But yeah, no. So with online coaching, obviously, something a lot of people want from it is that flexibility of lifestyle, and you're kind of making the most of that at the moment, aren't you? Here in Bali.
Yeah.
So what does a sort of typical day look like to you?
Typical day, so obviously living in Bali, as you said, so it's very different probably to what I would be doing back in the UK. But I mean, I'll train myself in the morning. I'm maybe, again, a bit of a cliche, but I'm a big believer in getting my own stuff done first. I think it just makes me feel so much better for the day, and I feel more productive, and I like having banked it so that if work does get busy, then I know that I've got it done, and that's important to me. So I'll train first thing in the morning, and then I'll usually go and do sort of 3-4 hours of work, then have a bit of a break, have some lunch, go for a coffee, go for a walk on the beach, whatever it might be, and then I'll usually try and train again, which isn't, I mean, you don't have to train twice a day, obviously, but I'm lucky enough that I can. And then I'll do a bit more work in the evening. And then, because of the time difference is obviously slightly different, I'm lucky in that all of my athletes are based all over the world. So I have, the States, I have Europe, I have Middle East, I have Australia, and they're all in different time zones. So what time I log on isn't necessarily dictated by my clients. And depending on what route I guess people go down with online coaching, I don't do any actual face-to-face sessions over Zoom or over video. It's all programming and then responding and feedback. So as long as I'm timely with my responses, I can pretty much dictate my hours.
It's as flexible as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Yeah. And Bali lifestyle's good?
Not bad. Yeah. You get a tan. I mean, we've
got a very good tan.
Yeah, we're lucky. Like, I think it's very easy to take for granted, isn't it? But when, we've sat at home, me and my girlfriend, and talked about how much we'd love to be able to, get out of the house first thing in the morning and go swim in the sea. And it's somewhere that you can actually do that and then go back to your desk and work for 4 hours and call it a full-time job. So it's quite nice. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Obviously with online coaching, like we've touched on already, there isn't, you pretty much giving up that face-to-face element of coaching. Do you miss that at all?
Yeah, massively. I didn't maybe think I would as quickly as I have. I think I thought I'd got to the point with in-person coaching. I was like, right, I've done it for 10 years. Like I'll be fine for a few years. But actually, I've only now been out of doing any face-to-face stuff for probably not even a year, and I miss it already. I think it's natural. Like, usually if you're a coach, you on some level enjoy spending time with other people. You're a social animal. You enjoy that interaction. And I think when you go online, you kind of lose that to an extent. We're not generally people that chose to do this job because we want to sit at a desk for 8 hours or however many hours. So to then do that is very foreign to a lot of us. And I'm used to being on my feet all day, every day. I barely did any office hours when I was working full time in rugby. So yeah, I 100% miss it. I think it also sharpens you a little bit, like just cueing lifts and understanding how to make someone better like that is the bit that you lose quickly, I think. So I think from a skill set and just from an enjoyment perspective, there's definitely, massive benefits from doing it.
Yeah. And do you feel that there's obvious answers to this, but do you feel like you give your clients and your clients can benefit from online coaching as much as they can from in-person coaching, or what are the differences for them?
In some ways, I think they can almost benefit more. Okay. It depends on the scenario. I think if you're coaching clients or athletes that are not in a professional setup themselves or anything like that. So they're coming to you and just paying out of their own pocket to be as good as they can be, or as healthy or as fit as they can be. Then I actually think that online coaching, you can make more benefits because there's more regular touch points. They have access to your programming day in, day out. Whereas I think sometimes when you're in-person PTing them, maybe they come and see you 2 or 3 times a week for an hour. But outside of that, depends on your model of business and what you offer. But outside of that, if you're just charging an hourly rate, you probably don't have that much input with them. Whereas I think if they pay a retainer monthly fee, then the touch points are more regular. You're speaking to them all the time. Like I know, and again, my girlfriend hates me for this, but like I'll be talking to my clients pretty much every day. So they have constant communication with me and the support if they want it. So yeah, I think arguably they can make more, but as we said earlier, it probably won't happen as quickly. And if they are a particularly visual learner or anything like that, then it might be slower progress.
Yeah, I guess as well, it kind of depends what the reason they came to you in the first place was. Like a lot of Gen Pop clients that you'd get in a commercial gym have probably come to a PT because they need the accountability. You know, a lot of them are beginners or just coming back to exercise, and they need someone to sort of hold them accountable regularly. Whereas with your clients, a lot of them are sort of on a journey of athletic performance. So the accountability part of it probably isn't as important.
We still have a lot of clients that come to us and they say that their number one reason for coming is for accountability.
Really? Okay.
And it depends, I guess, on what sort of person you are. Again, we're a bit of a niche in the people we work with where they are aspiring athletes themselves. 50% of the guys or girls that come to us want to be professional. Right. So they're already willing to put the work in. They know what they need to do. So it's a bit easier in that respect. But you still have, I think for me, the accountability bit, I would guess, and I don't know any science behind it or anything else, but I'd say it's bigger in person, just because I think most people are less comfortable with telling a fib to someone to their face than they would be behind a laptop or whatever it is. And it's just easier from that. And also you're actually with them and you can see whether they're doing the reps or lifting the load that they should be doing or anything like that. But I still think the accountability bit is huge online. Maybe because you literally have access to them through WhatsApp or through the software all the time.
Yeah, so you've recently set up your own online coaching brand, your own sort of personal brand. What does that sort of involve? What programs are you offering? What products are you offering?
Yeah, a range at the moment. So as I said, it's in its kind of relative infancy, but I'm trying to offer fixed length programs, which are maybe they are definitely more affordable for most people. But with that, you get access to the programming for 8 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever that length is. It tends to be with that the level of communication you get with me as the coach is a little bit less, but that's in line with it being a bit cheaper. So you kind of get what you invest in. And then the main one that I'm trying to offer, which is, I guess, the one I want to push more from a business perspective. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you that it's not better from a financial perspective, but it's also so much better from a coaching perspective for the athlete, is the bespoke element of it. And it's obvious the program is there just for you. You'll probably be the only person on that program or that exact program. Yes, there's probably elements that each different athlete is, you know, using, but you're the only person that's using that exact copy of that program. And the communication is as often as you want it. So you can book in for calls, you've got access through the messenger and I'll reply within 24 hours. You have weekly check-ins, you have nutrition advice if you want it, and lifestyle advice as well. And that's something that I'm quite big on, is everything outside of the gym or away from the field in with the group that I work with. So looking at recovery, sleep, general lifestyle habits and factors, and all of those things that feed into performance but aren't necessarily what you immediately think of when you think of online coaching. And I think there's massive wins that you can make with that. So yeah, fixed length programming, bespoke option programming, and then I guess as a bit on top of that, if people want it and choose it, is some nutritional advice. I'm not a nutritionist, so I will never claim to know everything or be able to give you a fixed nutrition plan. But obviously I've gained a fair bit of knowledge over the last 10 years or so I can give you advice on it and I can help with that sort of thing.
Okay, cool. And the sort of target market for you, your target demographic, is that mostly drawing on your past experience with contact athletes?
It's team sport athletes for me. Okay. So I'm with the company I work with, it's contact and combat. So rugby, American football, contact team sports, and then fighters as well. So boxers, jiu-jitsu, judo, Muay Thai, anything in there. But for my own personal stuff, I'm keeping it to what I believe is my best area of knowledge, which is team sport. So exactly, yeah. So I'm not limiting it to contact. So any team sport, and I guess every team sport has varying levels of contact, but even, basketball, football, to some extent, there is still contact. But it's, anything where you're in a team sport environment is what I'm going for at the moment. I may expand it in future, but that's just where I feel like my expertise are best. So that's where I can kind of get the most for the athlete, I guess.
Okay, that's great. So if you don't mind, could you tell us a bit about your approach to programming, the sort of science behind it and how you approach it?
Yeah, so I always say I'm a terrible salesman because, and it's probably not great for this sort of content, but I'm a terrible salesman in the sense that I really don't believe in, and I think every coach will say this, I don't believe in gimmicks. I don't think anything is really that complicated. It's about being honest with the work that you're putting in, following some good progressions and kind of earning the right to move your level through difficulty of exercises or adding load or whatever it is. So a lot of the way that I program is, and I say this to every athlete I work with will be sick of hearing me saying this, is about earning the right. So I'll try and set up, and this is actually something that I've learned from the guy who runs the company I work for, is having a very black and white, clear progression pathway within an exercise or within a session or an area for the athlete to work through. And I think for me, it ensures that you get the most gains possible out of the easiest regression of an exercise. It means that you're not leaving any potential gains on the table by jumping to maybe level 4 or 5 when you haven't actually earned the right to get there. But it also keeps the athlete accountable in the sense that, say, for example, if you look at something like a simple calf raise, which is, a pretty rudimental exercise that most people will do, we'll start them off with a double leg calf raise, and you have to be able to hit 3 sets of 20 reps at a solid tempo, unbroken, before you move to the next variation. And it just means that, as I say, you're not leaving gains on the table. You have genuinely earned the right to move to a harder progression or add more load to the bar if it's a more complex lift or anything like that. So my general philosophy is very simplistic. It's very honest. It's just, and I mean honest in the sense that it keeps the athlete honest. And it's all about, I guess, programming the quality rather than the exercise. I try not to get sucked into what you see on Instagram as sport-specific exercises or anything like that, because whatever way you program it is sport-specific. Yeah. Bicep curls in some way can be seen to be sport-specific.
Also the most sport-specific training you can do is the sport itself, and the stuff you're doing in the gym should complement that and improve your performance.
Exactly, and that's another thing that athletes I work with are probably sick of hearing me say, hopefully in a good way, is that we'll very much bias the sport practice over any aspect of S&C. And I say to everyone, if there's ever a clash in your training week between sports practice or an S&C session, and you're only going to be able to get one of the two done, then it's a no-brainer. Sports practice wins every single time. There's no doubt. And maybe I'm different to other S&C coaches in that sense, in that I'm not precious over the S&C sessions. They're there to support the sport rather than, you're not my guys, or my guys and girls aren't coming to me to be a better squatter. They're coming to me to be a better rugby player or whatever it is. So that has to come first.
Okay, one last element I'd like to touch on, if you don't mind. Don't need to know your bank balance, but obviously a lot of coaches go into online coaching because of the sort of earning potential. Obviously it's a bit cheaper for you living in Bali than it is back in the UK, but from your experience, how have you found the sort of earning potential as an online coach?
Again, I was lucky in that I kind of piggybacked onto what was already an established company in a way. So I was, lucky in the sense that I had a relatively decent level of income from it without having to put in that front end work myself. What I'm finding out now is that doing the front end work for my own, if I quit my full-time job and went straight into online coaching, then there's no way you'd be able to live off that for, I don't know how long, for the foreseeable. I guess you could argue you push things harder and you go all in on it if it's the only thing you're doing. So maybe it accelerates the process a bit, but to some extent you're still reliant on whether people buy into what you put out there. But I think there's 100% opportunity for it to be massively lucrative. I think you can handle, as a PT working in person, you probably can't handle, well, I would imagine you definitely can't handle 50, 60, 70 clients. Whereas online, you can easily do that. And it doesn't take up anywhere near as many hours capacity, exactly. So your earning potential is, I think, much bigger. But it's, as you said yourself, it's definitely not a case of it happening overnight. It takes a long time to get there. And like you said earlier on, like if anyone sells you, 10K in your first month and stuff like that, I'd like to see the stats of where that's come from, because I don't think there's many people that manage that. But
yeah, that's it. I think the reality is it's an industry where most people get into it because they love it. They enjoy fitness and being healthy, and they want to help others. And the earning potential is there. You can earn great money, but the main reason you're in it is because it's something you enjoy doing. And if you can earn a great income or a good enough income to live a comfortable life while doing something you enjoy, that's really good.
I think it's one of those things, and it's something that I've always tried to remember doing any private work, is that for anyone, anywhere, having a trainer online or in person is a luxury. No one has it as a necessity, and therefore your earning potential is only going to be so much. So I think, and it's always going to be reflective of where that person's at in their own life from a financial perspective and everything else. So you might have a client for 3 months that's, all singing, all dancing. They might then lose their job for whatever reason, and suddenly that's gone, and that affects your income stream as well. So it's as I say, I think the potential is massive. And like you said to me in the past, whilst there's thousands of online coaches or thousands of PTs now, you only need 10, 15 clients and you're making okay money. So you don't need loads and loads. So I think there is definitely potential in that sense, but it's, as we said, it's maybe not the sunshine and rainbows that everyone makes it out to be.
Yeah, in all of our education, we try and push a kind of a hybrid approach, at least as a starting point. Start off coaching face-to-face, learn your craft. Then if you want to start introducing an online element, then go down this hybrid approach of maintaining your face-to-face element and introducing some online elements. So that might be complementing what you do in person, or it might be starting to build an online brand where you're offering online coaching separately to your in-person coaching. And over time you might start to earn enough from your online coaching that you reduce your face-to-face or get rid of it altogether, or you might get to a point where you think, do you know what, I actually prefer the face-to-face, and go back to that. There's not one size fits all. It really depends on the coach and what you prefer doing, and how well you do as an online coach versus in person as well. They're completely different skill set.
I think for me, if I could now, and probably maybe the long-term plan will be wherever we end up, is to try and have a hybrid approach. I think, and I actually forgot about this, but when we first decided we were going to move out to Bali, my initial plan was to get a job out here, and whether that was a bar job or coaching or whatever, and then use my online coaching to supplement that. I never expected online coaching to get to the point where I didn't have to get another job. So maybe that gives an idea as well of what the actual earning potential is. And I had a hybrid approach for years. It was in person and it was online, but it was a full-time job and then online coaching to supplement that for 2-3 years before I got to that point. And I even then only really went full-time because we were moving countries.
Oh, mate, that's been awesome. Really appreciate you coming in. Anything else you want to add?
I think for me, I'm fully in your corner in the sense that I totally agree with you about getting in-person coaching experience first. I think skipping straight to online, you're missing a valuable step in your own learning, but also you're potentially then cutting clients short because you haven't gained that knowledge and that experience. You're probably not going to be as good a coach as you can be. So I think I would imagine that your ceiling for progression as a coach and therefore in your business is probably a lot lower if you don't do in-person coaching first.